Mike, here we are again, podcast number 2 for 2025. So here we go. So I thought that today it might be good to kick off maybe part one of a three-part podcast that we could do on the subject of finding your purpose. I mean, everyone seems to talk about purpose, right? This time of the year, what's my purpose? What am I going to do differently in 2025? How do I connect with what I should be doing? So how does that sound to you? Should we kick that subject around?
Yeah, I love the topic of purpose. It's directed so much of my life. So really happy to do so, and a good choice, Davey.
So what I thought we'll do, let's talk about purpose as a general topic in this one. And then in our next podcast, I'd love to interview you because you made a sizable change, a significant change from one career to the career that you're now in. I think over 20 years you've been in that career. So in podcast 2, I'd love to interview you and talk about how your purpose led you to the decisions you are. And then maybe in the third one, I'll go through some of my career path. And again, how purpose shaped and helped inform, the decisions that we make. So let me throw a question. I know it's straight off the bat. So let me throw a question. How do we define purpose then? What does purpose mean when we talk about purpose?
Yeah, it's such a big question, and the first thought that immediately comes to mind for me is why you get out of bed every single day. And just having said that, it means that then everybody does have a purpose in a sense. But unfortunately, I think for many people, they're getting out of bed because the purpose is to try and survive, to just put bread on the table, or to just get to the end of the year. And that is definitely not going to energize your life. So the purpose is the thing that gives you energy, especially when it's a meaningful purpose, to do something in the world that's going to have impact, that ties in with your strengths. And when you do it, the world is mostly a good place. And I put the word there mostly because in chasing purpose, you're probably going to get your ass kicked as well. And those who chase purpose, I like Brene Brown's sort of language here, will find themselves crying on the kitchen floor in a fetal position. And I think that's, chasing purpose, especially something that's meaningful, is not necessarily an easy thing, but boy, is it a rewarding thing, because it's who you are.
I love it. I love it. So as you're talking, my mind's going to two words, I guess: duty and desire. Yes. I think often we get out of bed because of a sense of duty. We have to provide for the family, and itself not a bad thing, or there's a sense of duty bound. But I think connecting with one's purpose is when you connect desire, passion. Is the word that I guess you're talking about. Passion is from crying, angst, emotion, joy, happiness. All these things, I think, are created in that package called purpose. So purpose for me would be moving from duty into the realm of desire. I do this because I want to do it, not because I have to do it, I guess. What do you think?
I love those words. So, so often duty can come from a good place of the heart, but it's doing things because we have to do it. So we're dutiful husbands, or we're dutiful employees in the organization. But duty can often miss the passion or the love. I think we could add another D in there, which is in the word desperation, which is, it was a Torah who said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, and be quiet no more. So I think there's this slippery slope from, often we go from a place of desire to the place of duty. And if we're not careful, the duty then becomes this place of desperation, which is the feeling of being stuck, that you can do nothing. So one of the things that takes us out of a place of stuckness is a move back to desire. I think one of the things, like you've just identified then, that moves us into a place of desire is connecting with a sense of purpose.
Mm.
And that is the power of purpose, because purpose is definitely in the place of desire, good purpose.
So that's interesting, because there's almost this circular thing going in. We need desire to find purpose, but sometimes we need to identify a purpose in order to connect again with desire. There's this kind of circular thinking there. You want to elaborate on that a little bit more? That was quite interesting.
Yeah, I had a thought, and it's skipped my mind now. But so Dan Pink, if I can just throw a quote out here, and it's a favorite quote of mine. But he says, "The most motivated people, not to mention those who are productive and satisfied, hitch their desires to a cause that is larger than themselves."
Mm.
And so I don't know whether I'm answering your question here, but purpose is seeing something, purpose beyond survival, because survival is just really about, yourself, but purpose that is connected on something that's bigger than you, leads to this place of desire. And yes, so getting back to what you were saying, desire then keeps feeding purpose.
Yeah,
And I don't know whether you can ever separate these two, and maybe they're almost the same thing. I don't know. But the people who are alive in purpose don't have to go to a motivational speaker to get them to do something. They've got it. It's intrinsic. And there's a big word. There's a big word there.
That's a great word. Yeah.
Yeah. So purpose
Well,
is an intrinsic driven life.
In the intrinsic driven life, I like that. I think it was Augustine, I might be wrong, but said the glory of God is seen greatest in a man fully alive. Yes. It's a quote I regularly say, as you know. Often I've seen an actor or an artist or somebody that you just look at them and everything about them is vibrating. There's some vibrating going on there, and they're right in the center of, I would call it, their purpose. I guess it's that ikigai thing, where what you do and what you love doing and what you're being paid for and what you can help others all converge into this moment. I remember watching a Robbie Williams video of him sitting on the edge of the stage singing, and there must have been, I don't know, 50,000 plus people, all their hands in the air singing that song Angels. And it was like you could just see him. Everything's vibrating. He's in the moment of his purpose, And I think that's what conjures up for me when you talk about this, finding that place where we find energy, we find centeredness, we find like, I'm vibrating. There's a good vibration going on here. That makes sense.
And I think that a word that would be closely linked to purpose, talking more business, would then be mission, because mission is what you wake up to do every single day. When people walk into a workplace, it's the mission, and you want to try and gravitate a group of people around the sense of mission or the sense of purpose. But let me throw a question at you, Dave, because my experience with purpose is that some people jump up and down with absolute joy and, yes, we're talking purpose, and other people become threatened because it's like pressure to find this thing. I don't know whether you've experienced that with with some people, where it's like, I'm desperately trying to find my purpose, and so therefore a topic on purpose can actually bring a sense of what's wrong with me because I don't seem to have it. What do you say to people? And have you experienced that? Have you? Because
absolutely,
who move into a bit of a cold sweat when you start talking the word purpose.
Absolutely. I know people that have been scarred for many years, to the point they will not engage in any conversation that tries to ask the question, are you in your, I guess it comes from in some religious teachings and certain around the world, there's a sense of being in or out of the will of God. Like there is one chosen path, and you either are on it or you completely missed it for eternity. I actually grew up with that thinking, and it pressed upon me as a young child and into my teenage years, so much so that I was absolutely paralyzed with fear. not to venture into other things in case I was going to miss this one direction that, somehow was designed for me from the beginning of the world. Maybe it was, but that kind of thinking is paralyzing. I think that you come into your purpose usually as a man almost with blindfolds on, stumbling around, far more than you do, cold calculated spreadsheet and then decide. I think you emerge into your purpose over a period of time. That's certainly me looking back.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying there about stumble. I think where we can go wrong with purpose, where we can go wrong even with vision, is this notion of trying to make it black and white. And
right.
A good way to respond to people when they say, "What's your purpose?" It would maybe be a bit more tentative, which goes, "It's something like this. It feels like this."
Right.
Right. And here's another great phrase: being lost in the right direction. My purpose is lost in this direction.
That's beautiful.
Whereas I think what you were sort of saying there, sometimes we can become overwhelmed when a person, it's almost like they've got it nailed down to like
right.
This perfect wording, and some of us are going, "Wow, I don't have it."
Yeah, exactly. And look, some people seemingly are born right from the word go, knowing exactly what they're supposed to do, and they do it quite happily and contentedly for the rest of their lives. And that intimidates almost all of us, I think. But that certainly is not the normal for us. I love it. This process. I think discovering your purpose is a process, right? And also, I would say purpose isn't static. I think you've discovered a purpose here, but you might be still being led into another purpose over there. Like 2024, you might have been doing something, but you feel somehow that season's coming to an end and there's a new season in 2025, but you're not quite sure what that is. Rather than be paralyzed, rather than be curious. I think curiosity is a lovely word that should be associated to purpose. Is be curious about how do I feel when I do certain things? Be aware of the energy that you feel when certain things take place, and then take note of that and say, maybe that's a indicator, a signpost for me to go and try that. And to serve. I mean, in my life, as you've done in yours, we've worked in many careers, and I would say at any given time in those careers, I would have said I was in my purpose. So I don't think purpose is static. For some, it's one thing. I believe for most of us, it's probably many. And I don't think it's a tightrope. So if you do feel paralyzed when someone talks about these things, firstly, break the limiting belief that says that it's only one way, and two, treat it with curiosity. And maybe another C would be courage. What do you think?
I love it. Yeah, we often discover purpose by just doing certain things, and like you say, you come alive in it, and you discover what's not your purpose by actually also doing certain things, where you go, that was so not me. That just so didn't make me come alive. And so I really do agree with you. And when we talk about me in the next podcast, then that's definitely how I sort of walked into my sense of purpose, was gaining a better understanding in terms of what really made me come alive. And also where I tended to have a natural ability to do certain things, which I was very, very, very grateful for. So yeah, I've sometimes said to people who battle with purpose to then ask different questions, which could be, instead of saying, "What's your purpose?" it would be, "Hey, if you could solve any problem in the world, what would it be?" And that immediately begins to, again, lost in the right direction, but possibly gives clues. Or what really makes you angry?
Yes. Yeah. Because you're connecting with emotion here, right? Which is what we're saying, an indicator of your purpose is, how does it make you feel? How does doing something make you feel? Yeah. In my work, I spend a lot of time talking to founders of companies. I've been a founder, you have, of your own company. But a lot of founders, they love the early stages of developing a business from scratch, you know, the excitement of building and developing this business and growing a team, etc. But then quickly the business moves into another phase where it requires different leadership, someone different at the helm, someone who perhaps has more attention to detail, etc. And that founder then starts to, well, flounder because the purpose has now come to an end. The purpose was to start something, but the skills and this brings in another subject, I guess, into this thing is we have natural strengths and skills. And that is in the mix of our purpose as well, I believe. So this founder would start something, bring to bear all of their natural strengths and skills, but then quickly that business goes to a new level where their skills, etc., and strengths no longer serve it. And I've seen founders who way overstay their time, you know, still believing it's their purpose to grow the company, but actually, no, their purpose is to found things, start things. They're starters, not finishers. What do you think of that? I mean,
I so agree with that. So our strengths, and I know that that's a topic you love chatting about, but our strengths are definitely signposts to this, to our purpose. And if you've got a strength to see things, to find things, to start things, it's definitely probably leading you in the direction of creation, purpose.
Yes.
That creates.
Yes.
And so you see, here's a great line. We need to pay attention to what catches our attention. And if you think of the people who start things, pay attention to the fact that you are a starter, and what is that telling you? So, you know, as we say these things, you realize that purpose is maybe not this mystical thing that sometimes is made out to be. It's actually curious and a sense of awareness that we need about our own sort of inner lives. And it often just requires to slow down.
Now, that's interesting. So I think that in order to find your purpose, or if there's someone listening to this that's, you know, maybe even questioning, you know, how do I find my purpose? I think sometimes you can't do it on your own. I think, you know, sometimes people say they go away to find themselves. I think when we're having this discussion, you need to embrace and talk to the people that know you, that are friends with you, that speak truth to you, and ask them the question, I guess. When you look at me, what makes me most alive from your point of view? You know, from what you know about me, help me understand, you know, what is it that you think is the place where I'm alive, I'm feeling, you know, what do you think about that? I mean, this whole sense of working with someone, I mean, we're both coaches, so I guess we're going to say that, right? But
I agree with it. Look, I think the greatest clues to your purpose come from within, which others don't see. But yet, those who witness your life will, like you say, will definitely notice your habits, what makes you come alive. So here's an interesting question to ask people, and it would be, if they had to make a public holiday about me, based on the things I talk about, based on the things I show you pictures on, based on the things that you observe in my life, what would we be celebrating on this particular day? And that would be most interesting. Now, I have, you know, to your point though, I have seen people, for example, say, I love working with children. And then you look at them and you say, man, I've never ever seen you speak to a child before. Or, you know, and again, just a little bit of a question mark into the thing, you know, it's like, or hey, I love, I'm an entrepreneur. And then it's like, I've never ever heard you share one idea. And I think that's where we probably need that feedback from outside, which would maybe say, maybe it is so, but then you're definitely not sharing that gift with us.
Well, and that's that challenge, isn't it? So just got to get my camera right there. That's the challenge, because I think sometimes we can fall in love with the idea of something, working with children, or you know, and so we then need people in our lives that we trust, that are safe people to be around, to go, Well, you said that you like children. Never seen you work with children. Maybe it's just an idea that you like.
Yeah.
And because I sometimes people can carry these things for years and years, decades even.
Yes.
And it's the one thing that's preventing them from looking elsewhere, because no one's actually challenged them
Yes.
to why they believe that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That is so good. And that's where we often do need people to challenge us in this thinking, because we can have a blindness to ourselves, and the only way through the blindness is sometimes other people just sort of sharing and saying, hey, I'm not seeing that. But it takes a brave person to actually do that to another person. And you've got to do it very tentatively, because maybe we're only a witness of a part of a person's life. And so sometimes it might be, if that is true, then I want to encourage you out of your shell. Because, purpose. So here's going back to the start. Another phrase or idea we could put with purpose is the word gift. In some ways, your purpose is the gift you give to us. It's the gift you give to the world. And purpose remaining hidden is how we want to challenge each other out of that. So if somebody does say to me, hey, I'm all about children and I'm not seeing it, I suppose my first question to them is, hey, I want to see that.
Yeah.
And then if I see them with kids and they've got zero patience for them, I probably have to have a conversation and say,
are you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your point is beautiful. Sometimes we're in love with the idea. We've got passion for the idea, but not passion for the execution.
Hey, beautifully said. I love that. One of the things also when we talk about purpose is understanding how you were as a child, because I think one of the signposts to your purpose is asking people about what you were passionate about as a kid, because often we do things that act as children without any filters on, right? We're in a very unfiltered place. So, I know in my life, I was always the gang leader. I always seemed to gather people with the gang around. And I was always the instigator of this gang. And so I was always the life, of this group. And I think now, looking back, that's part of my purpose, which is to gather people and inspire people. And it was the roots of that were right then in my childhood. So, one of the things I would encourage people is ask about your childhood. What were you like in your unfiltered, unfettered times, and because sometimes, in our adulting, we place now all these filters and all these limiting beliefs and all these beliefs that we've taken on, and they can mask that identity, that purpose, that who we are. Yeah, your thoughts on that?
I agree there totally. So I think our childlikeness reveals a lot. And I know for myself, I wanted to be a DJ, and I was quite an introverted kid growing up. But the whole point of being the DJ was I wanted to talk. I had a message I needed to share, and so I would make, in my day, our day, we had cassettes, and I would actually create these musical mixes, pretending I was this DJ. And definitely, looking back, and I think this is a great thing about purpose, and you'll correct me on this quote, but life is often lived looking backwards.
It's lived forwards and understood backwards. Yeah.
Thank you. So look forwards, but understood backwards. And yeah, when you look at those little things as a kid, it does begin to make sense. So this is going into sort of podcast 2 or the next one, 3. But I'll never forget. I was at a conference when I was still in my corporate days, and this guy came up to me. His name was Anthony, and he said, "Mike, I've been observing you." I was like, "Oh, okay." A bit nervous. He says, "Whenever we're in a conference, and they divide us into groups, you're the guy who does the report back for the group." And it was like, oh, I agree with you. Now, how does that happen? I would be the guy who would volunteer. I'd say, so the moment it was like, okay, who's going to feed back to the broader conference? Hey, I'll do it. And most other people are just absolutely delighted to not have to do it. And Marcus Buckingham says this, Davey, and I think this links so beautifully then to purpose is, what do you put your hand up for? What do you volunteer for that you would maybe do at no expense, in actual fact, at cost to yourself? So I know for yourself, and I believe your music ties into your purpose, because you are a creator and you're an entertainer. You like to make people feel good, and I know that if I said to you, Dave, what are you doing Friday night? And maybe you say, no, nothing. So, oh, what a pity. I've got this gig that they're looking for a pianist, and you would be perfect for it. I know you would probably cancel what you're doing for that Friday.
Without a doubt. without a doubt. And it's just a beautiful understanding of that quote earlier, the glory of God is seen in a man or woman fully alive, because we chase those moments when we feel fully alive, don't we? There is nothing more powerful, more addictive, I guess, than being in that moment, feeling like, the world, you're in the center of this universe, and I do feel like that when I play the piano. I feel like when I'm on stage talking, I feel like that even right now, to a point, in this podcast, and we're just sharing art and ideas and thinking, and I think that's the challenge, to live our lives as best as we can, as close to those moments as we can. Knowing that there are going to be many times when we're as far away as we can be from these moments, but to keep coming back as if it were a watering hole that brings sustenance to the soul, and to just too far away.
And that's the part where only that others might get evidence that you're passionate about playing the piano and being in front of a group, making a people group will come alive. But that, and it's there. The danger of other people sort of giving you feedback to your purpose is they might see things that you're good at, but they don't necessarily make you come alive. So I did okay at accounting in school, but boy, would I be a terrible accountant, because everything about process would destroy me. Unfortunately, I failed accounts 2 so well that it stopped. But
nicely done.
No, but look, prior to that, the results, the marks, everything up until that point was, hey, you're a figures guy. You should go and be the accountant. And so there's a difference between being good at something and something being your purpose, and that's a whole nother conversation. I do want to ask one question, then I realize we're running out of time, because this is a bit of my growth in the last couple of years. But let me throw it at you. Is there a danger to purpose? Because we all get it. Purpose is a wonderful thing. But is there a danger to a purpose-directed life?
Wow. Yeah, I guess. So I think I mentioned you before. I believe a truth has to have attention. And so to answer your question, it's yes and no. Yes, there's a danger that we become so fixed on one thing that we miss all the other opportunities that are also waiting for us. No, it's not a danger, because the opposite is to drift and not find your sense of meaning in the world that you're in. And so I think, again, I love this truth, the truth of be content in the moment that you find yourself, but be intolerant of the present in order to create a future. And hold that tension. Enjoy the purpose that you're in, but know there might be a new one, another one coming. Mike, what a rich time. Absolutely. I love this conversation. So our next podcast, I'd love to hear a little of your story in a little more detail, how you went from being a potential rock star accountant to
I was never a rock star accountant. Accounts to pay to that, but yeah, I had a good career in the corporate world, and
yeah,
which was in accounting. Yeah.
amazing. Until next time, let's chat again. Speak soon.